1 minute ago, a deep-sea remotely operated vehicle surfaced from the most controversial dive in maritime archaeology history. What the crew discovered 12,500 feet below the North Atlantic has sent shockwaves through the Historical Maritime Commission, and it has raised questions that powerful people do not want answered. "Control, we've got a problem down here." The pilot's voice crackled through the communication system aboard the research vessel, positioned directly above the Titanic wreck site. His robotic submersible had been conducting what officials called a routine structural survey of the ship's B-deck promenade. But nothing about this discovery was routine. Sources close to the operation report the submersible had penetrated the collapsed remains of first-class stateroom B-52, following original White Star Line blueprints from 1912. The mahogany paneling should have revealed a standard connecting door to the adjacent suite. Instead, high-definition cameras captured something that should not exist. Behind the rotted wooden facade was a steel-reinforced door, industrial-grade, lead-lined, sealed with a locking mechanism that required a specialized key, not the standard brass handles used throughout the ship's passenger areas. The door wasn't on any blueprint, it wasn't in any historical record, and according to sonar penetration scans, it protected a small, heavily shielded compartment that the world's most powerful passengers took to their graves. Salvage divers found something hidden inside the Titanic's first-class section that will change everything about history's most famous disaster. The world that the sealed compartment was designed to serve was one of unimaginable wealth and absolute power, and secrets that could topple governments. April 10th, 1912, the luxury hotels of London. Behind the towering windows of the most expensive suites, the world's elite prepared for a journey that would change maritime history forever. These were not ordinary travelers. They were industrial titans, political power brokers, and financial manipulators who controlled the flow of global capital. Benjamin Guggenheim, heir to a mining fortune worth $77 million in 1912 currency. John Jacob Astor IV, real estate mogul and inventor, worth $125 million. Isidor Straus, owner of Macy's department store empire. These men did not just book passage on the Titanic. They commissioned it. They demanded it be built to their specifications, and they ensured it would serve purposes the public was never meant to know. The journey from London to Southampton was not a casual trip to the docks. It was a carefully orchestrated procession of security. Private railway cars carried passengers and cargo that required the highest levels of protection. Witness accounts describe trunks sealed with custom locks and personal valets carrying briefcases that never left their sight. The manifest listed personal effects, but dock workers reported containers heavy enough to require mechanical assistance. At Southampton's dock, the separation began immediately, while third-class passengers crowded onto narrow gangways, fighting for space with their meager possessions. The first-class boarding process was a carefully choreographed performance of exclusivity. The B-deck gangway was reserved exclusively for suite passengers, private porters, individual inspection, no crowds, no witnesses to what was being brought aboard. The real separation was not about comfort, it was about control. The Titanic's first-class entrance opened into what the White Star Line marketed as a floating palace of unprecedented luxury. The grand staircase rose 60 feet through the heart of the ship, carved from solid English oak and crowned with a glass dome that bathed everything in ethereal light. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic patterns across hand-woven Axminster carpets worth more than most people's annual wages. The opulence was overwhelming by design. The a la carte restaurant featured cuisine prepared by Luigi Gatti, poached from London's Ritz Hotel. The Turkish bath recreated the luxury of Constantinople's finest establishments. The gymnasium offered the latest exercise equipment, including electric camels and rowing machines. Every detail screamed refinement and exclusivity. Luxury was the distraction. The real purpose of these lavish accommodations was to create a controlled environment where the world's most powerful men could conduct business without oversight, without records, and without the possibility of eavesdropping. The first-class suites were not just bedrooms, they were boardrooms. The Promenade Suite, Parlor Suite, and Deluxe Suites each featured private parlors designed for confidential meetings. Sound-dampening techniques were built into the walls using methods that would not be publicly available for another decade. Connecting doors allowed discreet movement between accommodations. The ship's officers received explicit instructions never to disturb first-class passengers during specific evening hours, when the most sensitive discussions took place. The public saw unprecedented luxury. What they did not see was unprecedented privacy for planning unprecedented power moves. Titanic's maiden voyage coincided with the most turbulent period in global finance since the Industrial Revolution. The Federal Reserve Act was being debated in the United States. European banking cartels were consolidating power. Industrial monopolies were facing growing governmental pressure. The men in first class were not just wealthy passengers escaping to America. They were the architects of the modern economic system, transporting the blueprints for global financial control. Sources within maritime historical research have identified discrepancies in the boarding records that were overlooked for over a century. Private compartments were booked under corporate names that trace back to shell companies. Certain passengers used documented aliases that were not discovered until decades after the disaster. The ship carried human cargo that was never properly recorded in official passenger manifests. More importantly, it carried physical cargo that was never properly declared. Surviving correspondence reveals a network of coded telegraph communications between passengers before boarding. References to securing the documents and protecting the agreements appear repeatedly in personal letters that were sealed in family archives until recently. Investigation sources report that John Jacob Astor received a telegram on April 9th containing only numbers that appear to be coordinates, depths, and combinations to mechanical locks. The Titanic was not just a luxury liner making its maiden voyage across the Atlantic, it was a floating vault. Designed to transport the most dangerous secrets in the world across an ocean where no government could monitor, intercept, or subpoena their cargo. The lead-lined compartment discovered in B-52 was not an anomaly, it was not a construction mistake, it was the entire point. When controlling that much wealth, manipulating that much power, and engineering that many political outcomes, a place was needed to keep the evidence where no one could find it. The luxury, the publicity, the fanfare surrounding the ship's maiden voyage was all cover for the most sophisticated evidence transportation operation in history. October 15, 2024. The research vessel positioned itself 370 nautical miles southeast of Newfoundland, directly above coordinates that have haunted maritime archaeologists for over a century. The official mission statement filed with the International Maritime Organization listed their purpose as structural integrity assessment using advanced photogrammetry technology. Sources within the Deep Ocean Exploration Consortium reveal the real reason they were there. Investigation sources report that the lead maritime archaeologist had spent 3 years investigating anomalies in the Titanic's original construction blueprints. White Star Line archives, sealed for decades and only recently declassified, contained references to special accommodations and secured storage facilities that appeared nowhere in the publicly available ship specifications. The team wasn't conducting routine surveys. They were hunting for evidence of deliberate concealment. The descent began at 8 a.m. 12,500 feet of black water separated the surface from the most famous shipwreck in history. At that depth, the pressure reaches 6,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush a human body in milliseconds. The only thing standing between the investigation team and instant death was a remotely operated vehicle known as ROV, equipped with military-grade titanium housing and processing power that cost more than most people's homes. The submersible carried more than just cameras. High-resolution sonar penetration scanners could map internal structures through steel bulkheads. Ground-penetrating radar revealed density variations in materials. Chemical analysis sensors could identify trace elements in water samples. Most importantly, electromagnetic signature detection could locate metallic objects hidden behind non-metallic barriers. This wasn't standard archaeological equipment. This was technology designed for finding things that were meant to stay hidden. The descent of the ROV took 47 minutes. Every 100 feet deeper, the water temperature dropped another degree. By 8,000 feet, the external environment had reached near freezing. By 10,000 feet, the pressure readings forced the surface team to reduce descent speed to prevent catastrophic implosion of the vehicle's instruments. At these depths, one miscalculation means the loss of millions of dollars in equipment and potentially years of investigation work. At 12,347 feet, the submersible's floodlights illuminated the bow section of RMS Titanic. Even after 112 years underwater, the sight was breathtaking. The massive steel hull stretched into the darkness like a sleeping giant, covered in rusticles that created an alien landscape of orange and brown formations. The team wasn't there for sightseeing. They were there to investigate an anomaly that official maritime historians insisted didn't exist. Sources close to the operation report the submersible maneuvered toward the B-deck promenade, following GPS coordinates that had been calculated through painstaking analysis of survivor testimony and recovered ship fragments. The manipulator arms of the ROV cleared away decades of sediment from what had once been the most exclusive passenger area on the ship. The first-class promenade, where millionaires had strolled during evening constitutionals, discussing business deals that would reshape the global economy. The team guided the vehicle through collapsed sections of the superstructure, matching what the cameras revealed against original Harland and Wolff construction diagrams from 1912. Every rivet placement, every bulkhead thickness, every deck support corresponded exactly to the blueprints. The ship had been built precisely to specifications, with one crucial exception: Stateroom B-52. According to White Star Line passenger accommodations records, B-52 was a standard first-class stateroom with connecting access to B-54. The configuration should have featured mahogany wall paneling, brass fixtures, and a standard connecting door secured with the ship's typical passenger cabin hardware. Investigation sources report the submersible's cameras revealed the mahogany paneling exactly where it should be. The brass fixtures were precisely positioned according to the original designs. The connecting door was wrong. Instead of the expected brass handle and standard lock mechanism, sonar scans revealed a steel-reinforced barrier behind the wooden paneling. Electromagnetic sensors detected metal density readings that were 3 times heavier than anywhere else in the passenger section. Chemical analysis of water samples showed trace amounts of lead particles that should not have existed in a standard passenger accommodation. The readings were consistent with industrial-grade vault construction. This was unexpected. Sources close to the operation report the team used the submersible's mechanical cutting tools to carefully remove a section of the deteriorated mahogany facade. The cameras revealed something that changed everything about the Titanic's construction. The hidden door was constructed from the same steel plating used in the ship's most critical bulkheads, industrial grade, designed to withstand tremendous pressure and impact. The locking mechanism was unlike anything used elsewhere on the ship. Instead of passenger cabin hardware, this was a heavy-duty vault system that required a specialized key similar to bank security installations of the era. This was not 1912 bank technology. This was something more advanced. Investigation sources report the most disturbing discovery came when the submersible's ground-penetrating radar revealed the dimensions of the space behind the reinforced door. 7 feet wide, 4 feet deep, 6 feet high. Exactly the size needed to store large quantities of documents, small valuable objects, or sensitive materials that required protection from both water damage and unauthorized access. The entire chamber was lined with lead sheeting, creating a Faraday cage that would have blocked both electromagnetic signals and radiation exposure. This was not a passenger accommodation modification. This was a high-security storage facility that had been illegally installed in the most luxurious stateroom section of the world's most famous ocean liner. The chamber was secure. The team attempted to breach the vault door using the submersible's cutting equipment, but sources report the steel construction proved too robust for the remotely operated vehicle's capabilities. The door had been designed not just to keep intruders out, but to preserve its contents under extreme conditions that the builders somehow anticipated. Even after 112 years underwater, the seal remained intact. The most chilling discovery was yet to come. Sonar penetration revealed that the chamber was not empty. Dense objects, too regular in shape to be random debris, occupied specific positions within the vault. Rectangular forms suggested document containers. Cylindrical objects could be rolled manuscripts or technical blueprints. Cubic shapes might contain smaller valuables or technological components. The arrangement was deliberate, organized, and designed for long-term preservation. The placement was deliberate. Investigation sources report the discovery sequence was immediately transmitted to the Surface Command Center, where the team realized they had found something that fundamentally challenged every accepted narrative about the Titanic disaster. This vault had not been documented in any official record. It did not appear on any passenger accommodation plan. Its contents had been hidden for 112 years in the most inaccessible location on Earth. The fact is, hidden. When the team cross-referenced the stateroom assignment records, the conspiracy became clear. B-52 had been booked under the name J.A. The implication is shocking. Industries was a corporate designation that investigation sources traced back to a shell company controlled by John Jacob Astor IV. The vault had been installed in a stateroom owned by one of the most powerful men in America in the exact location where he could access it without observation from ship's officers or fellow passengers. What had Astor been transporting that required this level of security? What documents or materials were so sensitive that they needed to be protected in a lead-lined vault during an Atlantic crossing? Why had this installation been concealed from every official history of the ship's construction and passenger accommodations? Sources close to the operation report the most disturbing detail. As the submersible transmitted its final images of the vault door before ascending to the surface, the electromagnetic sensors detected something that should have been impossible. The locking mechanism showed signs of recent electrical activity. Something was still functioning inside that sealed chamber. After more than a century underwater, whatever John Jacob Astor had hidden in the depths of the North Atlantic was still operational, still protected, still waiting. The answers lay locked behind that steel door, 12,500 feet below the surface, in a chamber that was never supposed to be discovered. Someone had built it to last forever, as if they knew that someday someone would come looking. Within 18 hours of the investigation team transmitting footage of the B-52 vault, the story leaked. Maritime archaeology forums buzzed with speculation. Social media exploded with theories. Then, something unprecedented happened. The institutions that control historical narratives went into damage control mode. The Titanic Historical Society issued an emergency statement dismissing the discovery as inconclusive structural anomalies consistent with century-old deterioration. The National Maritime Museum in Greenwich called it misidentified bulkhead reinforcement typical of early 20th century shipbuilding. The Smithsonian National Museum of American History released a press briefing stating that no credible evidence supports claims of unauthorized modifications to RMS Titanic's passenger accommodations. Maritime researchers noticed something troubling about these rapid responses. The statements were too coordinated, too immediate, and too specific for organizations that typically take weeks to comment on historical discoveries. Someone had prepared these responses in advance, as if they had been waiting decades for this vault to be discovered. The speed and specificity of the denials suggested that powerful interests already knew what was hidden in B-52. The coordinated denial campaign prompted independent researchers to dig deeper into archives that had been overlooked for over a century. What they found in dusty storage rooms and private collections changed everything about the Titanic's final voyage. Sources within documentary historical research began cross-referencing passenger correspondence from the weeks before the ship's maiden voyage. Hidden in the personal papers of wealthy passengers were coded references that had been dismissed as routine business communications for over a century. When analyzed in the context of the B-52 vault discovery, the patterns became unmistakable evidence of conspiracy. Investigation sources report that Benjamin Guggenheim received a telegram on April 7, 1912, containing only coordinates and numbers. The telegram read 38.15 north, 49.57 west. Chamber prepared. Combination 847291. Content secured. The coordinates matched the Titanic's planned departure route precisely. The combination format matched the type of mechanical locks used in high-security bank vaults of the era, but with additional digits that suggested more sophisticated security measures. John Jacob Astor exchanged a series of coded messages with business associates in London and New York during the week before boarding. References to protecting the Windsor documents and securing the federal arrangements appeared repeatedly in communications that were sealed in family archives until recently. Most tellingly, sources report that Astor's private secretary sent a telegram to his New York office stating that a package was delivered to the vault and access was restricted to primary principals only. Isidore Straus, owner of Macy's department store empire, wrote to his business partner on April 8, 1912 that the London agreements were now safely secured for transport. The chamber installation was completed according to specifications. No ship's personnel were informed of the modification. This was not casual business correspondence. This was confirmation of a coordinated operation to transport classified materials using unauthorized ship modifications. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Investigation sources report that the personal diary of Thomas Andrews, Titanic's chief designer and construction supervisor, contained entries that Harland and Wolff shipbuilders had kept classified for 112 years. Andrews wrote on February 3, 1912, that he received special modification orders for B-deck installation, lead lining and steel reinforcement per client specifications, work to be completed without documentation in official blueprints, payment received through private banking channel. The client specifications had not come from White Star Line's standard passenger accommodation requests. They had come directly from a consortium of first-class passengers who had commissioned illegal modifications to create the most secure mobile vault in the world. Further investigation revealed the scope of what these men were desperately trying to hide from government oversight. The Federal Reserve Act was being debated in the United States Congress, with fierce opposition from banking interests who stood to lose billions in profits from monetary policy changes. European banking cartels were facing government investigations into price manipulation and market collusion. Industrial monopolies were under attack from progressive politicians demanding corporate accountability and antitrust enforcement. The documents and agreements hidden in the B-52 vault represented evidence of international financial conspiracy that could have destroyed careers, toppled governments, and restructured the global economy. Sources report the vault likely contained bearer bonds worth millions in modern currency, signed agreements to fix commodity prices across international markets, political bribery documentation involving elected officials in multiple countries, and stolen technology patents that had been acquired through corporate espionage. Most significantly, the vault contained evidence of deliberate market manipulation that had caused economic catastrophes affecting millions of ordinary people, while generating massive profits for the conspirators. Chemical analysis of water samples from around the vault revealed trace elements that should not exist near organic ship materials that had been underwater for over a century. Platinum residue suggested the presence of photographic plates used for document reproduction. Mercury compounds indicated the storage of precision technical instruments. Lead particles confirmed radiation shielding for preserving sensitive materials that would deteriorate under normal conditions. Investigation sources report the most chilling discovery came when researchers analyzed the electromagnetic readings that the submersible had detected inside the sealed chamber. The signature patterns matched those produced by early electrical timing devices patented in 1911 by a company that was secretly funded by the same banking consortium. The vault was not just protecting its contents from water and pressure, it was actively preserving them using cutting-edge technology that was decades ahead of anything publicly available. Someone had installed an automated preservation system inside that chamber, designed to keep the contents intact indefinitely. Even after the ship sank, even after 112 years of submersion, the vault was still functioning exactly as designed by engineers who somehow knew the ship would end up on the ocean floor. The implications are staggering. The men who boarded Titanic in first class were not just escaping progressive political pressure in America and Europe. They were transporting evidence that could prove international financial manipulation on a scale never before documented. Evidence that powerful interests have spent over a century ensuring would never surface. The vault in Stateroom B-52 contains proof of crimes that shaped the modern world. The fact that it is still sealed, still protected, still actively preserved 12,500 feet underwater suggests that the people who built it knew exactly what was going to happen to the ship. The B-52 vault sits in absolute darkness 12,500 feet below the North Atlantic surface. The steel door that was installed in secret remains sealed, its electromagnetic preservation system still humming after 112 years underwater. The evidence that could rewrite financial history lies inches away from discovery, protected by technology that was designed to outlast civilizations. Investigation sources report that formal requests to breach the vault have been submitted to international maritime authorities, but the applications have been systematically denied. The official reason cited was preservation of historical artifacts and respect for human remains. Sources close to the approval process reveal the real reason is panic among powerful interests who do not want the world to know what the wealthiest passengers were hiding from humanity. The B-52 vault may not be the only secret chamber aboard Titanic. Preliminary sonar anomalies detected during the investigation suggest similar electromagnetic signatures in at least 3 other first-class staterooms. If one vault contained evidence of financial crimes that shaped the modern world, what do the others contain? Stolen technology patents worth billions? Political assassination plans? Evidence of deliberate engineering catastrophes designed to eliminate business competitors? The Titanic disaster eliminated witnesses, destroyed evidence, and buried secrets in the most inaccessible location on Earth. Someone built those preservation systems to function permanently, as if they knew that someday the truth would need to surface. The question is not what happened to the Titanic. The question is what else is still down there, guarding the truth about who really controls the world.